You're listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. During the next hour, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, Chicago. You are listening to Fully Alive, the radio program of the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity at the Archdiocese of Chicago. I, along with Ray Pingoy, I'm Dawn Fitzpatrick. We are your hosts this morning. And hallelujah, he has risen.
Hallelujah. Happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter. I know it's been beautiful. Gosh, I got to take a nice bike ride.
It's beginning to look a lot like Easter, right?
Yes, yes. You know, that's the way I remember when I was a kid, the way Easter was explained, that we kind of go into Lent in the cold and dank, and things are miserable and rainy and snowy. And then when Easter comes, typically the weather's nicer and
there's more lights,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
So
yes.
awesome, so awesome.
Also, a lot of sneezing as well. A lot more sneezing going on.
Well, you know, that
allergy
has to do with
season.
all the pollen and
right.
the beautiful signs of new life.
Amen.
Yes. So, with that in mind, let's get right into our topic this morning. And we're going to do two things today. First of all, we're going to give you an update on what's going on with the repeal of the Parental Notification of Abortion Act here in Illinois. We spent a good deal of time on that last month. So we're going to introduce Bob Gilligan in just a minute, and we'll be talking about that. And then on the second half of the show, we're actually going to have someone who's an intern in our office, Kim Duda, who's done a lot of research on human trafficking, and she's planning a webinar. So we're going to bring her to expand the issue and talk to her a little bit about what's going on in our office in that sense. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and introduce our first guest. Hello, Bob Gilligan. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Don. How are you? How are you, Ray?
Happy Easter, Bob.
Happy Easter. Yeah, happy Easter, both of you.
Okay, so you all will probably, all of you listening will recall that Bob Gilligan is the executive director of the Catholic Conference of Illinois. And as always, you don't have light work ahead of you, especially on this topic of parental notification repeal that has presented itself to us of late. This is true?
Yes, it's back. Yeah, it never seems to go away. Sometimes
it doesn't.
There's an effort.
I know we kind of were able to, breathe a sigh of relief in 2019 because it just didn't ever come up, although we fought it pretty heartily, but it never really came up. And unfortunately, we think this one's going to come up. So why don't we talk about what's going on with it, Bob, and what we need everybody to do?
Yeah, sure. So there are two bills, Senate Bill 2190 and House Bill 1789. They both repeal the existing law. They attempt to repeal the existing law, which requires a minor, if that minor would go for an abortion proceeding, that the clinic has to notify a parent with 48 hours before the procedure were to take place.
Right.
So we know that this law is working and it's in effect, that the number of abortions to minors has declined since it's been in effect. And we know that laws should support parents' obligations to know what their children are doing, their minor children are doing, as is many other aspects of life. And so where the bill is that we are right now in the legislative process. We're kind of in the middle of it, if you will. So there's a break this week. There was a break last week. The General Assembly will return to its work next week, beginning April 12th. And at that point in time, we anticipate that there will either be a new bill number introduced, or they will move the existing legislation into a committee. We don't know if it'll be in the House or Senate side, but we're watching that closely. We're in close contact with the bill sponsors, and so we anticipate there will be a hearing on one of those two bills, either in the House or Senate. And honestly, it's going to get out of committee. The way the committees are set up and comprised, that legislation will get out of that committee, and then is the real opposition and the request for listeners out there to really get engaged and to call and to set up meetings with their members of the General Assembly to advocate against its passage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, why are we so worried about this bill? Or these bills, I should say. Well,
there's politics over policy here. It's funny because there was a poll commissioned earlier, it was about a month ago, and it found that 72% of voters in Illinois support the existing law that requires an adult family member to be informed if their minor wants an abortion. Mm-hmm. And actually, it's interesting that even a higher number, I think it was 74% of minority voters approve of this law. Mm-hmm. So the policy, and I'm sure most people listening to this, if not nearly all, would say, yeah, that makes sense to me. There should be a law that requires the parent to at least be notified. But unfortunately, politics and policy don't always go hand in hand. The politics of the abortion issue in the state of Illinois is such that Personal PAC, which is a political action committee that gives a lot of money to candidates and helps get them elected, they are very active. And unfortunately, that money, those contributions, and let's be honest, the culture is somewhat against us on these topics. And so the political pressure comes down on these lawmakers, and I'm sure most of these lawmakers, if you could get them in private alone, would agree with our position. But they won't do it publicly because they are afraid of what will happen to them in their next election cycle. So that's why these things go on. It's just that it's all politics. It has to do with how people get elected and how they maintain their seat in the General Assembly.
So it sounds like they're not even as concerned about what their own constituents think, but more about what the PAC thinks.
Well, they have more influence than unfortunately, what has happened in recent history is that those PACs and the politics of these situations are where we're weakest. Mm-hmm. We don't give a lot of money to these candidates. We don't give a lot of support in terms of elections. And so that's what they know. Yeah. And that's unfortunately what they listen to. Look, this is a pretty simple axiom. If they perceive that the grassroots would be so engaged that they could potentially lose their seat over this, they would vote with us. But we have not been successful in being able to do that in the past.
So it's important then to kind of light a fire under the grassroots.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sure it is.
And Bob, this is an ecumenical movement, right? We're not, as Catholics, we're not alone in this fight, right?
Right. I think you would see agnostics, atheists, other faith traditions would pretty much agree with us. Yeah, that this is just something that it just, like I said earlier, it just makes sense on a knee-jerk level that, anybody who's a parent out there knows that they have to sign upteen forms for their children to do just about anything in school, extracurricular activities, all sorts of things. The law requires, you can't be 21 to buy a cigarette in Illinois. It's just, there's so many examples. Of the law requiring, there's a different set of criteria for a minor than an adult, and there should be.
Right, yeah. Well, sure, because as we know that, psychologically the brain isn't completely developed until you're about 25. So risk behavior is that there's a reason why risk behavior is high in teenagers.
Right. Why you're out on insurance, anybody who's got a teenager paying auto rates for a teen versus themselves knows that the price difference, right? Why is that? Mm-hmm. Teens engage in risky behavior. They're impulsive. They file their emotions. They're not grown adults. And what's funny about this issue, too, is just in the lame duck session, the legislature recognized that. They passed laws that would not create certain crimes. If those crimes were committed as a minor, the penalties are substantially different than they would if they committed that very same crime as an adult. Right. And why did they do that? Well, they took testimony from people saying that adults brains are formed to a certain degree that someone under 25 is not. It just makes common sense.
It does.
This also, this also involves the whole family. I mean, with this
Right.
notification law, it involves the family in talking about this, right? I mean, it's common sense to bring this up to mom and dad, and hopefully,
Right.
again, just place it on the table and discuss.
Right, exactly. And the other thing is, it's funny, this happened about 10, 11 years ago. This bill was heard in the General Assembly, and I'll never forget it. There was a gentleman who was in the State House, and he was kind of half listening, half reading the newspaper, as they sometimes do on the floor. And he was listening to the debate, and something caught his ears. And he stood up, and he asked of the bill sponsor, he said, "So, Representative, if this bill passes, I have 2 teenage girls. They could get an abortion. I would never know about it, and if that happened, I'd be left to deal with the physical and emotional consequences of this, and nobody, and I would not know." And this man was a Democrat, and he was on the same side as the sponsor on just about every issue. And sheepishly, the sponsor had to say, "Well," he kind of talked around it, and the response from the lawmaker who asked the question was, "This is ridiculous."
Yeah.
I'm voting no.
Good.
I'm kind of surprised.
Well, and I hope we
Huh?
can pull on some heartstrings like that with this topic. That's kind of the idea. I can't imagine. I have daughters. I have a granddaughter. I can't imagine not knowing that they were going to have some kind of medical procedure
Any procedure,
at
right?
all,
Right.
any kind of procedure, and if they're going to have even their ears pierced, the parent has to agree with it and take them to do it.
Right.
So
Exactly.
we're not even talking about that. We're just saying let the parents know.
Yeah.
So that
And
they can
it's
deal with it.
interesting, like the proponents of this bill, they have absolutely, this is just running on nothing. It's shocking, like their arguments is they will say that, well, 500 requests, if there's a situation of abuse and neglect, there's a procedure in the law that allows for what they call a judicial bypass. And what that basically says is that if a teen feels that their parent could be an abuser or part of the situation, they can go and have this go before an administrative law judge to request the abortion. And in like only one out of like 500 cases has an administrative law judge turned down the request for an abortion. And I'm saying, like, well, what's the problem?
Right.
I understand the logic here. It is really a bill that it's a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah.
I don't understand. The arguments on the other side are they're vapid. There's no there.
Right. Well, and I can understand a lot of times their arguments against restrictions to abortion are regarding a woman's access, right? Like they'll say, well, if you restrict the abortion in this way, then you're going to put undue burden on their access to get an abortion. So, and in this case, you still need some limitations because this is a minor child.
We're talking about minors,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
and then they can still get the abortion if mom and dad agree, or if heck, it's only 2 days notice. They could still sneak out and do it.
And unfortunately, what we've seen is that there are parents that do want a minor to have an abortion. I mean, that's something that's a different set of arguments, but it is unfortunate. But it does happen.
Right.
And we've all been, those of us in the pro-life movement have seen that.
Sure.
But nevertheless, I think even under such a situation, it does provide another set of eyes and ears of an adult to monitor the situation. Thus, as that lawmaker I just described, well, then they'll know what they're dealing with. I mean, the parent will know why, maybe their daughter's not eating or not playing with their friends or withdrawing from schoolwork. And, well, at least they'll know that or why, and they can help deal with that.
Yeah.
But so, anyway, I think, it's just incumbent upon – part of the argument is that the law should support and encourage parents to be involved in their child's life, not separate from it. I mean, and we should be doing this in all aspects of society. And unfortunately, we're seeing a number of bills coming out of Springfield or talk out of Springfield where the opposite is true. I think one could say that there is now a war on families, and we see this with our tax credit program. We see this in the inability of to go back to school. We see it in a lot of different areas, and I'm concerned about the family, and I think we all should be.
Well, sure. We certainly don't want to see laws that are breaking up our families or
Right.
or putting us at odds with our children. It's hard enough to raise teenagers. I can tell you
Yeah.
that from experience. You know, so,
Yeah.
and of course, as a parent, you want to do what's absolutely best for your child. And if you don't even know what you're dealing with, that's going to be really hard to do.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
my goodness.
And I'm
Okay.
sure, your next guest can speak about this more eloquently than I
Mhm.
can, is one of the arguments we have been putting forth against the repeal of parental notification is if a parent and or an administrative law judge is taken out of the equation and there's absolutely no involvement of an adult in a minor's decision to have an abortion, that leads to situations where human trafficking can proliferate
Yes.
and continue.
Well,
And this is just one set of additional eyes and ears that we have on a minor, so maybe they could be, rescued from that type of situation. And
absolutely.
so we've as you know, we've been putting forth, we've been getting some testimony from some experts who will validate that perspective, and we've been quite successful in finding some.
Right. So let's put that thought on hold for just a minute. We need to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk some more about that aspect. Thanks, Bob.
I heard mercy call my name. He rolled the sun away. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because he lives. Amen.
Hey, it's Timothy Johnston here from Liturgy Training Publications. Over the past few months, I'm sure you've found yourself at home more, whether it's working from home or watching live stream masses on Sunday mornings. As we began adjusting to this at the beginning of the pandemic, one of the things I missed the most was gathering with friends at the parish. That's why we at LTP have created this new virtual gathering series called Living the Sunday Word. We meet virtually on Thursday evenings each week and reflect on the upcoming Sunday readings. And with that, we share stories to help us more fully reflect on the Word of God. I'm inviting each of you to join us, a group of friends meeting virtually from all parts of the country. So visit ltp.org for more information and to register. You won't want to miss this.
Caring adults make all the difference in the lives of adolescents. Catholic Charities understands this, and our mentorship program provides a free opportunity for youth living in Lake County to spend time, virtually, with volunteers who genuinely care about them. This program is ideal for youths age 9 to 12 who may need support navigating the challenges of childhood and early adolescence. Our amazing volunteers serve as friends and role models who help youth recognize their strengths and empower them to reach their full potential. Catholic Charities conducts a thorough background check on every volunteer, and our program coordinator closely monitors and supports each relationship. Mentoring is a fun after-school program that is totally different from remote learning. Virtual group sessions help youth enjoy fun activities with their peers, too. We're connecting youth with great role models. Join us today. To learn more, call 312-937-3375. That's 312-937-3375.
We invite you to watch Catholic Chicago this weekend, featuring a conversation with Cardinal Blaise Cupich and video highlights from across the Archdiocese. Here's host Todd Williamson.
The effort to get vaccinated, why the Church is helping to spread the word. We'll go inside the classroom as a national study shows how Chicago's Catholic schools are keeping students on track during the pandemic. And too many people are going hungry. We'll visit a food pantry where Catholics are working to meet that need.
Watch Catholic Chicago Friday at 7 p.m. on Chicago Loop Cable, Channel 25, and Sunday afternoon at 3 on the Comcast Network, Channel 100.
Welcome back to Fully Alive, the radio program of the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity at the Archdiocese of Chicago. You're listening to Dawn and Ray from Respect Life Ministries, and we are talking to the Executive Director of Catholic Conference of Illinois, Bob Gilligan, about some really dangerous proposed legislation that's going to take away parental rights and expose young girls even more to human trafficking than currently. So we just started to talk about that before the break, and Bob, you started mentioning a press conference that we had just a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some of the experts you were referring to that were on that press conference?
Yeah, there were a couple. One was Laura Lederer. She is an attorney, and she has written in Loyola University's public health journal. It's an academically accredited journal. And she did a fairly extensive review a couple years ago about the link between human trafficking, abortion, and health and clinics, abortion clinics. And in essence, what her work is concluded is that there is a link between those things, and that human trafficking unfortunately leads to, as people can imagine, a lot of pregnancies. Right. And when individual girls are trafficked and cannot get out of those types of situations, they're taken to clinics, oftentimes for basic health care needs, or that they're pregnant. And what Ms. Lederer has concluded is that clinics are not doing a good enough job of assisting or being able to identify women who are trafficked. Sure. And she participated in a press conference that you alluded to call attention to if lawmakers want to repeal the Parental Notification Act, well, now you've just, in some ways, led to more human trafficking, because parents and or administrative law judges, they're not there to provide one more check on a minor to make sure that they're not being trafficked. The other individual that we had, who I thought was quite compelling, has a very unfortunately tragic story, was a woman who, she's now a doctor, Brooke Bellow, and she herself was trafficked at a young age. Starting, I think it was at age 11 was her first encounter, and then 14 she was trafficked, and she said quite passionately that, like, if only parental notification or consent laws were in effect when she was going through this, maybe her mother would have been able to locate her and therefore inform the police or authorities to save her. Right. So, it's another good example of why we need these laws. Look, I'm not telling you that parental notification is fail-safe. It's going to prevent human trafficking. It's not going to. Right. But it is one more thing we can do. I mean, the legislature has passed a law recently that requires, and I'm sure many listeners have seen these postings, if you go into certain hotels or public transportation hubs, if you're on the CTA, you'll often see signs that says, if you're being trafficked, call this number or take this pamphlet. And, maybe a girl who's in a bad situation could at least grab that, stick it in a concealed place, and call later so her perpetrator doesn't see it. One of the things that Ms. Lederer noted in her study is that the law in Illinois does not require abortion clinics to post information about where a victim of human trafficking can get assistance. And it's a loophole in the law, and it should exist.
Sure.
And I've talked to some lawmakers about doing something about it, but so far it's kind of fallen on deaf ears.
Right.
But so there's a lot there with this subject of human trafficking, and it's just one more reason why the law should stay as it is. And quite frankly, I think Don, you, and Ray and I would argue that we shouldn't have parental notification. We should have at least a parental consent law.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. The parent just gets notified. There should be consent, but it's kind of one of these things where it's better than nothing. But we could make it even stronger than it is.
Well, and do we really want to be known as the state that traffickers bring the girls to for abortion because they can get away with it? I mean, that's what we're coming down to, right?
Well, we pay for it here because our Medicaid money, it's publicly funded. And as you indicated, Don, I mean, there are now a number of abortion clinics sprouting up, along the border with Missouri and Iowa and Wisconsin. Well, there's a reason. They're coming here.
And they're only a couple of miles away from the border.
No,
it's easy to bring the girls over. Yeah. And then they're not required to prove that they're residents, right, in order to get Medicaid. So it just seems like common sense has really gone out the window. And also I'm noting in the letter from our 6 bishops on this topic that they state that there's 37 states in the country that have not only parental notice laws but also consent laws, and all of the surrounding states of Illinois have some kind of law. Is that right?
Right.
So why not say, well, we can just pop over to Chicago, right? I mean, why not?
Exactly. And researching this, but we're pretty confident that there is not, at least in recent times, there is no state that I'm aware of that has repealed or significantly weakened their parental consent or parental notification laws.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of where the country is going, where other states are going in recent times, and when I say recent times, I'm talking about the past 10 years, is that they are actually going the opposite way, which is they're enacting parental consent or notification laws that are stronger, not weaker. We're going in the opposite direction again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so, and interestingly enough, too, Bob, I know that you are the recipient of some poll results where 600 people were surveyed, and
Right.
even 56% of those that were surveyed claimed to be pro-choice.
Right. That's a
And
good
yet,
point.
72% of the people said that they were in favor of some kind of parental notification law on this topic. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're right. I think the main point here, the takeaway is that, although we wouldn't necessarily agree with a pro-choice position, it is perfectly common. It's perfectly common for an individual to claim to be pro-choice and also support a parental notification law or consent law.
Yeah.
So, and I think when we're talking about this with others, I would stress the point that, of course this is about abortion, but it's also, I would argue, equally about a parental rights issue.
Yeah.
And so I
Yes.
think, the challenge for us in terms of the pro-life community is to phrase this and frame it as a parental rights issue, albeit we can disagree with whether abortion is right or wrong. We're basically, as we indicated before, we're trying to persuade mostly Democrats who are pro-choice that they're, at least if they're pro-choice, a parent should still be notified of what their minor daughter is aware of. So, yeah, and then, as you indicated, the percent of people that are, and this is not just of people, this is of likely voters. 72% of likely voters support the law that requires an adult family member to be notified if their minor is seeking an abortion, and even a higher percentage, I think it was 74% of minorities say that as well. So this cuts across all demographics and all people, because, like as I said earlier, this is just common sense, and people recognize that.
Going back to what you mentioned, it is really a war on the family, an attack on our domestic church. What can we do now? How can we help in this cause to inform our representatives?
Well, I mean, as people of faith and as Catholics, I think, we need to be more cognizant about what goes on in families and help supporting families. Families that are having problems, families that need help in a number of ways. And so, I think we all should be cognizant about our obligation to support families in general, because let's be honest, I mean, the family is kind of under attack, and there's a lot of strains on that. As it relates to this particular bill, what I would encourage people to do is please call your state rep and your state senator, both at this point in time. And if you don't know who that individual is, you can go to our website at www.ilcatholic.org. If you want to, you can find out who your state rep and who your state senator is. There's a pre-written message to members of the General Assembly if you want to send an email. And if you want to take the next step, I would suggest looking at how to have a Zoom call with your state rep or your state senator. There are trainings underway that Illinois Right to Life and the Catholic Conference are putting on. There's another training on April 7th. Ralph Rivera of Illinois Right to Life will be conducting it. It's at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And then on the 8th of April, Molly Malone Rumney, who works for Illinois Right to Life, will be conducting another training. They're no longer than a half hour. They begin at 6 p.m. And you can find out about those trainings through the Respect Life office at the Archdiocese of Chicago, who was publishing them, as well as the Catholic Conference and Illinois Right to Life. And that will take you to that next level. You can find out how to have a Zoom meeting with your local lawmaker. We'll walk you through the steps on how to do it. We'll walk you through the steps on the important messages to send, give you a little bit of confidence, and hopefully have people engage with their state reps and state senators. We're doing this because, as you know, that with the coronavirus situation and COVID and all that, that it's very difficult to have in-person meetings with some lawmakers. Some lawmakers are doing it. So, every lawmaker is a little different, but to be on the safe side, the Zoom meeting is in some ways kind of easier. You can get, 3 or 4 friends to do a Zoom call a lot easier than you can arranging schedules to meet with your state rep during the day. So anyway, Zoom calls are entirely helpful, and so we would encourage those as well.
Okay, so everybody has their marching orders. We'll talk about this some more in the next half when we welcome a guest to talk about human trafficking and the concerns there. Thanks, Bob, for joining us, and we'll hear the rest of it. Thank you. We'll talk to you all after the break. Bye. God bless.
God bless.
Let my soul join the world that never ends. Amen, amen. I'm alive because He lives. Amen, amen. Let my soul join the world that never ends because He lives. Because He lives.
The Word Made Clear is exactly what its name implies. It's an easy-to-understand explanation of the Word of God, the Gospel. Hello, I'm Father James McElhone, Director of Biblical Formation for the Archdiocese of Chicago. I'd like to invite you to take our free online Bible study program by going to thewordmadeclear.org. Our website offers an audio-based guide to the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Listen to my lectures and follow along with the handouts provided. There are even discussion guides. You can also explore the biblical roots of the Mass. And there are links to a wide variety of biblical sources that will benefit both teachers and students of the sacred scriptures. Just go to wordmadeclear.org to experience our free online Bible study program. Again, it's free at wordmadeclear.org. It's the Word of God. Enjoy.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
Catholic Charities Schreiber Center for Human Services is now open in Round Lake. Due to the pandemic, we are limited in the number of in-person programs that we currently can provide. However, a food pantry is open twice a week and a Wednesday night supper is held with to-go meals every week. A wide range of senior services are now offered as well. If we can assist you or someone you know, please call us at 847-546-5733. That's 847-546-5733. Before, during, and after COVID-19, Catholic Charities is here for you.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. Every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the Archdiocese of Chicago presents programming about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
I believe I overcome by the power of His blood.
Welcome back to Fully Alive. You're listening to Dawn and Ray. We work in the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity at the Archdiocese of Chicago. Boy, I got myself all tongue-tied on it. It's so much to say. So we just had a very interesting discussion with the executive director of the Catholic Conference of Illinois, Bob Gilligan, about some really dangerous legislation, House Bill 1797 and Senate Bill 2190, both proposals to repeal the Parental Notification of Abortion Act, which it's just really got some dangerous implications. And with that in mind, we've invited a new coworker of ours. Her name is Kimberly Duda, and she is actually working on a ministry practicum in our Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity. And the ministry practicum is all around human trafficking. So Kim is a graduate student at the Catholic Theological Union here in Chicago. She's working on a Master of Arts in Pastoral Studies. She is about to produce a webinar to introduce people to human trafficking and what it's all about and how we can help people in that situation. And she's also the director of religious education at one of our parishes here in Chicago. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Sure, we're so excited to have you. I don't know if you got to hear a little bit of the last half, but we're as we talked, we're very concerned about some legislation that's railroading into Illinois, which would repeal a law that was hardly fought and won, a law that's actually prevented about 30% of the abortions in minors since it was finally put into place in 2012. And for whatever reason, the wisdom is that parents don't need to know if their daughters have an abortion. So I know that in your work, you do some work in human trafficking. So let's just start talking about what you're doing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I first became aware of the issue of human trafficking some years ago when I was living overseas, and I think at that time I really thought that it was primarily an overseas issue or an issue that was happening only in the developing world.
Okay.
And I came face to face with it when I returned to the Chicago area, started really looking into this issue of human trafficking and how prevalent it is, and I found that actually it is a worldwide problem, and that in the United States we have major issues with human trafficking.
Okay, so how did you come to that realization?
So I did a lot of research, and I started what was called the Human Trafficking Concerns Ministry at my parish, along with the help of a couple friends. And we just started doing research. We went on Catholic Relief Services online. We looked at what they had to say. We partnered with an organization called Reclaim 13, which we learned so much about the issue and how the average age of girls that are sex trafficked is 13 years old. We also got involved with Women at Risk International, who does a really great work helping to empower women, give them economic ways to, get themselves lifted out of poverty through making jewelry and, other crafts and things like that.
Okay, so Reclaim 13 says that the average age of a woman who's trafficked is 13, or that's when they begin.
Yeah,
so,
13 years old.
So that would imply that it's not really of their own choice if they're being trafficked, right, at 13.
And Kim, this is Ray, and as you mentioned at first as well, my understanding of human trafficking is it's more of like an immigration, migrant issue, but it really is in our backyards. It's here. I've learned that Chicago, at least O'Hare Airport, is one of the hubs for this human trafficking, sex trafficking stuff, correct? I mean, it's happening under our nose.
We lost her. Okay, so we'll get her back on, and I'm sure she'll have plenty to say on the topic.
Yeah.
But Ray and I, we went to I guess a conference that addressed this 2 or 3 years ago, and that conference drew a big connection between pornography and human trafficking, which certainly is an issue because everyone has a computer in their pocket nowadays. It's pretty easy to take advantage of pornography. Okay, do we have Kim back?
Happen there, but Ray, just to speak to your comment, I think that is one of the largest misconceptions is that it isn't something that's happening locally, and the reality is there's so much access now to trafficking, especially minors through the internet, online. So it's definitely happening in our backyard. Actually, right now there are about 300,000 youths in America that are at risk for being trafficked.
That's really scary. And so we would assume that their parents somehow don't know that this is happening.
Correct.
Right.
So there are definitely different ways that young people are victimized.
Mm-hmm.
They can be victimized through, taking a picture of themselves that gets into the hands of someone who then uses that as an opportunity to blackmail
Mm-hmm.
the young person, saying that if you don't do what I say what I say to do, then we're going to, show your parents this. There's all different ways that these predators really groom and recruit their victims.
Mm-hmm. And from what I've been reading about this, I mean, it used to be that they would snatch somebody and you just didn't know what happened to them. And that still happens. But I think from what I'm also hearing is that they've gotten very crafty in their grooming to the point where sometimes a girl will be at home for dinner and with her family every night, but yet she's still being trafficked in secret in the afternoon or after school. And the way that the predator has arranged it in his very creative way, the parents are none the wiser.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they use, different methods of force and coercion. They, there are situations where these young girls think that they're in love and that, they're just going to do this until their boyfriend can get a job. And then all of a sudden they're caught up in this and they don't have a way out.
So, and this man who's posing as her boyfriend is actually her trafficker.
That's right. That's right. So they pose as their boyfriend, but they're really trafficking them.
Mm-hmm. So again, this leads back to our concern about this legislation that's been proposed to repeal the Parental Notice of Abortion Act, because if this 20-some-year-old man who's really a sex trafficker is posing as a boyfriend of a 14 or 15-year-old girl, and he's forcing her to do things with all kinds of men, there's a good chance she could get pregnant and he might want to get rid of that evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no notification to the parents whatsoever.
And this isn't a consent, this is a notification.
Just a notification.
Right.
So perhaps that notification would be the red flag that, mom and dad need to say, something's going on with our daughter here that we weren't even aware of.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And, what's interesting about, so if a 15-year-old, even if a 15-year-old agrees to, the sexual activity for payment or whatever, they're still considered a trafficking victim because they are not old enough to give consent. So at 15 years old, they can say, I want to do this because I love my boyfriend, but the reality is they are still being trafficked because according to the law, they are not able to give consent.
Interesting. So they
According
can't,
to the law.
according to the law, they can't give consent to be trafficked, yet they can go and get an abortion without their parents even knowing if this law goes through. Interesting. This just seems like some big confusion there. And then they just passed a law in 2019 here in Illinois that said by July of 2020, hospitality workers, like in hotels and places like that, had to be trained on the signs of trafficked, of people being trafficked, so that they could raise the flag. So on the one hand, we have this great law that helps people to know how to identify these problems, and on the other hand, we have a law proposed that would put it further into the dark. Just
right. And I think that, sometimes what happens is people are they're unsure of what trafficking is. They still have some of those misconceptions about it's not happening here, it's not happening in my backyard, it's only, a specific group of people. But the reality is that, it is happening here.
Well, and it's really interesting. And I wish I remembered the website, but when Ray and I went to this conference a couple of years ago, they showed us a place where you can identify what's really like a pornography ring in any zip code in the U.S. And I Googled my own zip code, and there was like 10 of them within 2 miles of my house. And how scary is that?
Yeah, that's very scary. And especially now the porn industry, as they call it, it actually conceals large-scale criminal networks of pimping and human trafficking. So people caught up in that are being trafficked as well.
Sure, and that's a big connection. Now, I started to talk about that before when we lost you, but when you came back, so we can talk some more about that in just a minute because we need to take another break. So if you could hold on for a minute,
Sure,
Kim,
sure.
And if all of our listeners would hold on, we'll be right back.
Because he loves was covered in sin and shame. I heard mercy call my name.
Caring adults make all the difference in the lives of adolescents. Catholic Charities understands this, and our mentorship program provides a free opportunity for youth living in Lake County to spend time, virtually, with volunteers who genuinely care about them. This program is ideal for youths age 9 to 12 who may need support navigating the challenges of childhood and early adolescence. Our amazing volunteers serve as friends and role models who help youth recognize their strengths and empower them to reach their full potential. Catholic Charities conducts a thorough background check on every volunteer, and our program coordinator closely monitors and supports each relationship. Mentoring is a fun after-school program that is totally different from remote learning. Virtual group sessions help youth enjoy fun activities with their peers, too. We're connecting youth with great role models. Join us today. To learn more, call 312-937-3375. That's 312-937-3375.
Hello, I'm Cardinal Blaise Supich. I got my COVID-19 vaccination, and you should too. It took just a few seconds and was painless. The Food and Drug Administration determined the new vaccines are safe and effective, and the Holy See, as well as the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, has concluded getting the COVID-19 vaccine is an act of love of our neighbor and part of our moral responsibility for the common good. We have lived with the pandemic for many months, and I know we're all getting tired of it. Vaccination is one of the most important ways you can protect your health and the lives of those you love and help bring the pandemic under control. When it is your turn, I urge you to be vaccinated. And remember to do your part by wearing a mask, washing your hands, and watching your distance. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thanks for hanging out with us here on Fully Alive. I'm Dawn Fitzpatrick. I have Ray Pingoy here with me. We're co-hosting this episode of Fully Alive. And at the moment, we are talking to a coworker, Kimberly Duda, who is working on a ministry practicum in our Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity and developing a webinar to educate people on human trafficking. So we were talking about, you know, how scary it is and how prevalent it is.
Yeah.
And that certainly weakening our laws in Illinois isn't going to help the problem. So, so Ray had a point too, as we were in the break, about pornography and the connection.
Because we did talk about the victims, Kim, and a little bit also now on the buyers are these quote unquote Johns. Kind of feel bad calling them Johns. You know, these are the buyers, but because I know a couple of good guys out there named Johns, and I don't want to call them Johns.
Right.
But I mean, there are buyers out there, and again, we think that is just happening in the movies, but it really is happening all around us. Can you mentioned it about the link to pornography, and I'm seeing this as like we're grooming the porn industry is grooming these men that are
or boys
that are addicted to this, and then now they're going to be buyers.
Right. And so what they're doing is they're showing submission through rape, exploitation, coercion. You know, pornography is based on this misogynistic myth of women as sexual objects who are eager for self-destruction. And the filming of these sexual acts under economic and psychological coercion, it really presents this picture that these women are participating in it when really they are trapped. They are vulnerable women who are trapped and cannot see a way out.
Sure.
Whether it's because they lack, economic opportunity or, their circumstances, or in some cases, they're being held against their will, violence is committed against them.
Yeah.
I did want to mention one thing about the grooming methods. So, because we were talking about girls under the age of 17, and 1 in 5 statistics show that 1 in 5 children are solicited sexually before the age of 18 online. Traffickers are online. They are everywhere that teens hang out. They actually work with recruiters, so they find people the age of these girls, and these recruiters kind of make their way into the girls' lives and get them to trust them, build relationships, etc.
So insidious, my gosh.
This is about money. This is about just trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It is about money. It's a $150 billion industry. In fact, they are really estimating that within the next couple of years, it will be more profitable for the criminals who are engaging in it than drug trafficking.
Well, we had a statistic, because Ray and I have done some presentations on the dangers of pornography, that the pornography industry actually brings in more income than the NFL, the NBA, all of the sports, outlets completely combined. So it's just crazy that they make that kind of money hand over fist at the price of a person's soul, really. It's just awful.
Yeah. So there's something like 200,000 images accessed per minute. There's a really great study, prostitutionresearch.com, by a Dr. Melissa Farley, who's a psychologist that interviewed, tons of people, hundreds of people on several continents. And, what in her work, she identified that something like 200,000 plus pornography sites are accessed every minute.
That's really scary.
And going back to the whole grooming these buyers, with pornography, they're training them to say, "Oh, well, it's no big deal." But I want to really dispel that, right? I mean, it is a big deal, and they are just they think it's. I mean, they think it's free and it's harming nobody, but it really is feeding into this whole frenzy of sex trafficking.
Right. And there's such serious psychotraumatic scarring. What they estimated is that girls that are caught up, women and girls, or even boys are caught up in this as well, but people caught up in trafficking, they have a higher rate of PTSD than military. So 39% of adults, 27% of children who were trafficked suffer with PTSD. And for soldiers, the rate is something between 10 to 31%. So it's huge. It's just the impact that this sort of abuse and violence and being trafficked has on a person it's almost immeasurable.
Right. So we certainly don't want our state being the site for this trafficking to get rid of their evidence, which is what is proposed really with this legislation that's proposed. So,
absolutely.
So when is your webinar going to air, and how can
people... our webinar is going to be Tuesday, April 20th at 7 p.m. We're going to be sending the links out. We have a couple of great speakers. And we're really just going to try to, talk about the issue of human trafficking, the different types of human trafficking, the circumstances that increase vulnerability. We're going to have someone talk to us about Catholic social teaching and what the church has to say about the issue. And
that's a really good point. Catholic social teaching, and how does that relate to this topic?
So, first we're called, Pope Francis calls us to recognize that this is a scourge against human dignity, and the themes in Catholic social teaching, such as the solidarity, being in solidarity with others, the dignity of the human person, all of these are just being torn apart by this issue.
Well, certainly, because we're not recognizing that there is a human here. We're basically taking a human and turning them into an object, which Ray and I spend a lot of time talking about that topic through theology of the body, and that we were not called to treat each other as objects. When people become objects, then we are using them, which is actually the opposite of love. So,
The modern day.
Yes,
Yeah.
Pope Francis said it's a selfish point of view that allows human beings to be used for personal gain.
Yes, yes.
Modern day slavery now.
Modern day slavery.
Kim, what can we do as parishioners? I know you're a religious director, religious education
Yes.
director. What can we do in our parishes to make sure we talk about this topic?
Yeah, so there are a lot of really great parish initiatives. The USCCB actually has the Amistad movement and the Shepherd program that is basically a step-by-step way to raise awareness, to educate, to advocate for victims' rights, and it really lays it out very clearly. So if listeners wanted to go on the USCCB website and put in human trafficking, they would be led to a page that has a couple of different resources.
Right.
The Shepherd movement, the Amistad movement are really huge. Also, Catholic Relief Services has a huge anti-trafficking campaign. They have tons of things from writing letters to legislators asking them, to look at supply chain transparency, to holding vigils, prayer vigils, to, fair trade programs and different ways to, help lift people out of poverty.
Great.
There's also, that's one thing I will say after getting involved in, producing this webinar and really looking at this topic, there are quite a few agencies out there. So people in all different ways, can find what they're looking for to get involved.
Sure.
Women at Risk International, Reclaim 13, the Polaris Project. There's so many things out there.
Absolutely. We found the same
And
thing.
we can always use more.
Yeah. Well, and there's a group called NACOSI that is the National Committee on Sex Exploitation, and they hold a conference on this every year, and it was just really eye-opening when we went to that
Really
conference.
was.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you're right. There's organization after organization who's addressing this at a different level, and it's just so important to really get the information out there.
Yes.
So quickly, how can people sign up for this webinar?
So they'll have to go through the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity website, I believe.
which you can do by going to the archchicago.org and navigate over to the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity, and then you can find some information about the webinar and how to sign up for it. So, and you said that would be on April 20th at 7 p.m.
Yeah,
and
correct.
And I think it sounds like it's just going to be a riveting webinar and really eye-opening. And it's so important that we protect our kids, that we help people to grow up as whole individuals and loved people, so that they know they're loved. And I think that this human trafficking does the opposite. So so whatever we can do to help people through this and to prevent it from happening, and certainly everyone needs to contact your legislators and tell them to vote against House Bill 1797 and Senate Bill 2190, because both of those will enable more sex trafficking to happen by hiding evidence. Because parents won't be any of the wiser if a daughter a daughter's a victim and has to have abortions and the parents never know. So So anyway, thank you so much, Kim, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was a great discussion, and we look forward. Ray and I, this is a topic we're very interested in. We look forward to working with you more closely on this as we go forward.
Thanks, Kim.
Yes, me too.
Yep. And thanks everybody for listening. We will talk to you in May. God bless.
Thanks so much.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.